So when it comes to the Newport festivals, there are so many different angles that we could look at in terms of assessing it and what it means for the community and so on and so forth. But one thing that's really incredible, and you can see it in the image behind me, is the bike infrastructure that Bike Newport has created over the years, and it has just grown enormously. So here to talk about it is Bike Newport's Bari Freeman. Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So talk about this year, some of the numbers that you saw between Folk and Jazz Festival in terms of people who rode their bike to the fort and used your bike parking infrastructure.
Yeah, it was really interesting. It started off, really stunningly on Friday of Folk Festival. We've never had more than about 1,200 bikes on a Friday. It's the lowest day, and 1,200 is a lot of bikes. But it would increase from there each day. And this year we had 1,600 bicycles on Friday, which was absolutely stunning. We had a lot of new people biking. We're in a slightly different location. Folks may remember that we were actually on the pavement very close to the festival entrance. This year, as you can see from the photo, we moved onto the grass between Sale Newport and the paved area. And that was very cooling, to be on the grass instead of pavement. And we were right next to the boats again and the water, so there's always a cool breeze. But to see that number of bikes arrive, on Friday to set us up for what followed, which was two more days at 1,500 each on Saturday and Sunday. A lot of it is estimating. We try to count, but you lose count after a little while. And that was, a very typical high. Maybe we have 13 or 1,400 each year. We had 1 year, we had 1,800 in one day, and that was stunning. But the 1,600 was, very much a high. Besides that, that 1,800 day. And then it kept up all weekend. Jazz Festival is a big drop off. We usually drop to about 300 bikes a day. Last year we had, I think it was 400, 300, 300. This year we had solid 500 every day. And there were a lot of new people had never done it before to jazz. A lot of people who, actually left the line of cars and went home and got their bikes, or were visiting and had bikes with them and were in the line with cars and pulled out and went and parked downtown and got on their bikes because there was such a backup of cars. And that's in large part because there aren't 1,600 people biking. So all of the people who are coming to the festival in cars, that really gets backed up. The Folk Festival didn't have that kind of backup.
That's for sure.
A lot of that is due to the bikes. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. And as you get closer and closer to the fort, all of a sudden that backup becomes more like you realize what you're in for. I can say that firsthand as having to drive because of the equipment I have to bring.
Right.
And I'm thinking, man, there's got to be a better way. Well, there is, I guess, maybe, ride on your bike with your equipment if you're like me, but it's a magical thing to see the bicycle infrastructure in Newport come to life in just a short window. And it kind of teases what could be in a larger scale, not just these 2 weekends per year, but whether it's the beach or other events or even just getting around town, the possibility is real.
Yeah, Bill, it's so important. I mean, what we're seeing is that people want to ride bikes. I mean, if this makes the case that we need to have bike lanes, as many people as are biking, it's not ideal to bike alongside cars. I mean, it's brave. We have incredible support from the city, especially from the police department and the YMCA and the schools to have places for people to park their cars. But if this doesn't make the case for bike lanes, I don't know what does. We need to separate people. I really have high hopes for accomplishing that before the next festival season, to be able to separate people from cars. They don't know whether they should be on the right or the left of these long lines of cars. I meet hours with the police department. We plan together, we think together. But, until you have a mark that says, here's where you should be, to separate the bikes and the cars, for the incoming. And when we do, we'll have that many more people biking to jazz as well and everything else. And things will run more smoothly. As people are driving, a couple of miles, it's very easy to get lots and lots more people out of their cars and not have an hour and a half backup at the Jazz Festival.
No question. It's that multimodal transportation model, if you will, that just comes to life. What kind of coordination goes in? What you mentioned, hours of coordination, and certainly you can sense as you're approaching the fort from whichever angle you're coming, whether you're coming by, I guess, I don't know, from downtown or from Ocean Drive, from Brenton Point, whichever angle you come, certainly coming from downtown, there is that sort of cluster of cars, and you've got people who've never been to Newport before in their car, and they're confused, and there does seem to be a real case for bike lanes. What are some of the major elements of the coordination that goes into the current iteration of this project, if you will, because it can get dicey sometimes up there, especially as you're coming up and down the hills by Hammersmith Farm.
Yeah, the main points that we talk about, are the flow, and whether folks are going to, whether the bicyclists are going to follow the same flow as the cars or have an opportunity to separate from them. One of the interesting topics that comes up year after year is that, from the police department, if we let the bikes separate sooner, they're going to head to town and turn the wrong way on Thames Street. So we have a lot of work together to do to make sure that the people on bikes know that they can't turn left on Thames from Wellington. And that we have, communication down there to help people understand how important that is, how serious it is to not go the wrong way on Thames Street. That'll make it better. Coming in and out of the fort, we use the two channels, the two different roads of Fort Adams Drive to designate one specifically for bikes on the outbound from Folk Festival. We can do that, and we can channel the cars even coming out of the fort to the right, to go around the loop and give the bikes a chance to get, up the hill and away. But we can't do that, or we haven't done that yet at Jazz, because there's so many cars. So they have to use both channels for the bikes. So there's more conversation there about helping people understand left or right, helping the police that are out there understand when bikes need to be able to deviate from the original planned flow, to put safety really primary. When you've got the 500 from Jazz is a huge number, and it's three times that for the folk festival. So we talk about the routes. Police and Bike Newport talk about the routes. We talk about the flow. We talk about the communication between the police and the bicyclists. We talk about Thames Street. Those are really the key points. And of course, we work very closely with the Festivals Foundation to plan it out. And we're very lucky to have 11th Hour Foundation, helping to, fund all of this to make it possible to get more people on bikes.
Right. I was just going to ask about the Festival Foundation's role, because they celebrated this year their proclamation, and Governor McKee got involved, that this is the greenest festival, or it's a green. I shouldn't necessarily say that because I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's a green festival. What component of that broader statement that the Newport Folk and Jazz festivals are sustainable, green friendly festivals does Bike Newport play in the big picture?
Well, bikes are carbon free. I mean, we're getting rid of the traffic congestion. We're getting rid of the emissions. I mean, it's about as green as you can get. It's the only zero carbon, transportation that's arriving. And the people who are riding bikes are very aware of this. They know that it's more fun for them. They know that, they're contributing to reducing the traffic congestion. They know that they're contributing to reducing the transportation emissions. It's about as green as you can get as a contributor. On the national global scale, transportation is the #1 contributor to all of our problems. So, working towards the multimodal, working towards, carbon free, especially in our very, very, high risk area here, related to climate and sea level rise, shifting people out of cars sooner is really a very significant contributor.
Last question. I know you have some, or at least a major event coming up. What else is in store for the calendar year for Bike Newport?
Thanks for asking. We have what I think is the most fun event of the summer, even comparing with the festivals. It's called the 10 Spot Ride. It's on August 26th. You can find information on our website, bikenewportri.org. But it's 10 locations around town. They're all secret until the day before, actually the day of. People who sign up are given only a starting location so we can distribute people around town. And then the 10 locations are each a beautiful garden of some sort, some quite majestic. Each one has live music, food from a local restaurant catered, and a refreshing drink. And people get where they want, when they want, over the course of these 5 hours, on their own routes with guidance from, GPS. It's just an enormous amount of fun, great music, great food, and everybody's on their bikes.
Bari Freeman, Bike Newport, another festival season in the books.
Thank you, Bill.